Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. It is the 15th of July, and it is probably the most eventful 3 days that we've ever seen. Just unbelievable amount of stuff has happened. And so I'm very fortunate tonight, to have on with me a regular co-host and good friend, Sunny Danforth. Sunny, glad to be on with you here. And I guess, when the news hit, I literally had just seen a presentation of total coincidence about Ronald Reagan being shot. And it was a video. It showed all of the things that happened and the aftermath of it. I remember years ago being on the Reagan dinner and hearing a presentation from a gentleman who wrote a book called Rawhide Down, which is about the whole experience and how Reagan actually came within just minutes of not making it. And of course, history was obviously changed from what it would be. And then I get this notification from Newsmax saying something. My jaw hit the floor. I just couldn't believe it. And at 6:15 p.m. Eastern time, 3:15 Pacific on Saturday, that an assassination attempt had occurred at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And at first it just seemed like, maybe some rabble rouser got caught, and then as the whole thing unfolded and the video came out, you could see that President Trump went down, and then he was, of course, bleeding. And then behind me is him pumping his fist after, and this is an iconic photo. It looks like Iwo Jima. And this is just a photographer snapping pictures who obviously was just moments.
That's the photo of the year.
It's going to be the photo of the year. And then when you see the video, it's even more compelling because he gets up. First of all, he's like, I want my shoes. And secondly, he's like, yeah. And fight. And tragically, behind him, a firefighter from Pennsylvania who was there attending was shot and killed. There are others that I believe may have been injured or I don't. It's a little murky right now. I know that the nephew of a U.S. Senate candidate who was right behind Trump, the nephew was like up a couple rows. So David McCormick, I think, narrowly was missed, and then his nephew felt a bullet graze him. And Trump, of course, in the end, as we learned, had a bullet pass through his ear. And as they learned, it was a shooter who was about 120 meters away, who I've heard no adequate explanation yet. And I know Congress is going to make...
He was less than 200 feet away, not yards.
Yeah. Not yards. Yeah.
And Kevin, thank you. It's my pleasure to be on here with you tonight and talking about this.
This is just, I knew that if I called you, you might say yes. And I'm so glad you did, because this is just not another day, is it? I mean, it's not another time period. And the thing is, not only is there not much of an explanation for how somebody gets that close with a rifle, but I saw immediately afterwards a gentleman interviewed by the BBC who said, we saw him and we were yelling at the police and telling them there's a guy over there with a rifle, do something about it. And like 3 minutes went by and they didn't tell Trump to get off the stage. They didn't do anything. And so
there was I was going to say a comedy of errors. Well, there was nothing damn funny about it. But it is huge amount of errors. You have been in situations where there's the Secret Service and with high profile people, the president. So have I. And what I saw in the aftermath of this, so I was working in the office and my mom goes, hey, the rally's starting, so I went out and I thought, well, I'll watch it for a little bit. So I watched the whole thing unfold on live TV.
Yeah.
And then I hit X, formerly Twitter, and I started looking to see what's unfolding and seeing the interviews, seeing other people's videos on there, and it shows there's more that's going to come out, and certainly don't have all of the information, but it's so sad that one person lost their life and two others, it is confirmed, two others were injured.
Yeah.
And that is tragic. I praise God that Trump had used that magnetron for a video and turned his head to look up there. Had he not done that, he would not be here today.
Yeah, and
And
I think I heard that the teleprompter might have gotten hit too, and there was some shattered glass
that
around,
was
and
a
so
lie from the media. They actually
was there?
the fake news, I'm telling you right
Oh,
away,
they were in
fake
overtime,
news goes,
overdrive, huh?
oh, he was hit with glass. In fact, the fake news even said that because I watched it on X, what some of the so-called legacy media. Oh, Trump fell down, so the Secret Service pulled him off the stage. I mean, the lies that started immediately. I couldn't believe it, and I said to my mother, they don't want us believing our lion eyes. They
Yeah,
want to tell us what happened, and it was sickening seeing that they will not. CNN, CNBC, DNC, do
yeah.
not want the truth out there.
Oh, and this was the unfiltered version of what happened. Told the most of the story, because once those
Yes.
guys were talking, all kinds of crap. But if that guy, everybody who saw that guy, um, who was there and witnessed the shooter on the roof and said, we were telling the police, everybody said that guy better go get some, like, go into hiding, because whoever might be held responsible for letting this happen is probably not happy that this is out there. You know, that this guy bore witness to a complete failure. And of course, as we know, there's a debate going on right now, which I think they'll get to the bottom of, that the Trump campaign had asked for additional security and didn't get it. They said, and then the Secret Service said that didn't happen. We'll find out. I mean,
Yeah, we will. It
but
will come out. And
but
the
they don't
shame.
have a good explanation yet.
So, Kevin, have you seen the report where a police officer, a local police officer, went on the roof with the guy before he fired? So he went on the roof with the shooter, got popped up there, and the shooter pointed the rifle at him, and then the guy went down. And as a police officer, knowing somebody's up there, I assumed he climbed the same ladder that the shooter did. I don't know. I've heard he was hoisted up, although if the shooter climbed a ladder, why couldn't he climb the same ladder?
Yeah,
And as a policeman, I would think you would have your firearm unholstered going up there, because you don't know what you're going to find.
yeah.
Now, the shame of it is, as everybody knows, there was no Secret Service on any of that group of buildings. Not one Secret Service. All it took was one person on top of one of those buildings would have been able to see where the trees blocked the line of sight of where the two snipers were. That was part of the issue. And then, of course, the ridge line of the roof. They're not real steep ridge, but by looking at it, there was so many errors. And I was shocked that there was not more Secret Service or security on the outside perimeter,
Yeah.
because that they were high buildings, and it was that was just gross negligence. And
This
I'll tell
is
you,
Secret Service 101. This is not even like, I mean, in fact, it's not Secret Service 101. It's just Security 101 and
it
Secret
is.
Service. But you know, there is quite a bit out now about that are reviewing. Apparently, there was a petition within the Secret Service being circulated by the rank and file saying, "Please investigate the Secret Service. We have a problem here with leadership." And
She
and
needs to
so,
resign. She needs to be fired right now.
well,
It should have
that's
happened
the thing.
that day.
Remember what Trump said to Biden during the debate? You never fire anybody.
Yeah.
We have complete failures. You never fire
Yes.
anybody. Did anybody get fired for the failure in Afghanistan? No. So they don't fire anybody, which is why we have a complete mess.
Yeah.
And
This is what DEI gets you.
yeah, no, that's right.
It's
That's
true.
exactly.
And I'm
And
going to
so
be
this is,
critical of something else. You know what? I'm all for women in jobs. But when you have your subject that you're guarding is over 6 feet tall, everybody around him needs to be 6 foot tall. And there
yeah,
were multiple very short women there. And I
yeah,
have nothing against women, but I'll tell you, when you're in an emergency situation, if you're a fireman or a policeman or guarding a president or a presidential candidate, a high profile person, you want the brightest, the strongest, and the largest, doing that job, because
yeah,
every single person there should have been able to pick up that president had something happened. President Trump, former President Trump, had something happened by themselves. And when you're 5 foot something, you can have a heart of a lion. You could be a sniper, you could do other things in that profession. And as a person I'm only 5'2". And there was a time in my life, let's see, I wanted to be a policeman. And then, they had 5 foot height limit. Same with fire department. Well, that was
yeah.
like unrealistic. And so I was really sadly disappointed because the woman that was there on that stage in that picture could not guard him at all. A huge hole around him as they were trying to, stop everything or getting him up and whatnot.
Maybe they could have put her up on a roof to make sure that somebody couldn't crawl up there.
Yes,
That would be, I'm
yes.
sure she
I'm not
could do
saying
that.
they can't have the job, but put them in a, a different situation. If she was guarding a 5 foot tall woman, she had been just fine.
Yeah. Well, all I can say
Poor
is
man.
at this point, um, there's more questions than answers. There is a need for accountability, but the first thing that I started thinking is, this is just another day in Biden's America, where things go wrong, incompetence reigns, people never get fired. And then I know that there's been sort of this temporary pause in the Biden campaign, and they've taken their TV ads down. They were going to counter program the Republican National Convention. They're not going to do that. I think that was a dumb idea to begin with, because you
Yes.
don't compete with an arena full of 50,000 people. You just don't do it. It's stupid.
No.
That's why
Waste of
everybody's
money.
quiet. Yeah. But I also think that, that there's more to this than just the competition of campaigns. In Biden's America, things get screwed up, no one takes responsibility, and they don't get fixed, and no one gets fired.
No.
And the only solution to it is to ultimately to fire the guy who's responsible for all of it, and then work your way down, and then fire everybody else who
Merrick
just.
Garland is ultimately responsible.
Well, I think
That's my
the Secret
understanding.
Service doesn't the Secret Service now. The Secret
But
Service
there's a woman
reports
who's
to the
in
Department of
charge.
Homeland Security, I think, because Mayorkas is the one who denied the extra
Or
protection to
Oh,
RFK.
Mayorkas. I said the wrong one. It's
Yeah,
Mayorkas. I
yeah.
said the wrong
Which,
one.
they're a bunch of clowns,
Yeah.
all of them,
Yeah.
and the only thing they're good at is playing politics uh, long enough to frustrate and uh, the will of the American people and the visibility that Congress demands of what their activities are. But it's just another example of why we actually have to be vigilant about all of this. Like, just don't even let this slow us down. this is God definitely did. I mean, no one can look at that and say God wasn't part of this one.
Yeah.
They decided God decided Trump was going to survive. That's it.
That's
And
fact.
we notice how little we know about the person who did this still. I always think that whenever that happens, I'm very suspicious. There's also rumors being put out there anytime they can obfuscate. But there's a
Did you
story
see
as
the
to why this guy did it.
Did you see the video of he is in a video that BlackRock made? They
Mm-mm.
have now pulled the video down, and it was about a teacher in a like an AP class on financing, on high finance and economics. And this guy, the shooter, was in that video that BlackRock did, which now has been removed. There's
Yeah.
another video that I saw this morning. Somebody very talented took one of the videos that shows that somebody had filmed, and they put the timeline on, and then they put Trump speaking on another video side by side. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
And in that, you're hearing people go, "There's a guy on the roof." So the one video, they say, there's a guy on the roof there. Hey, get the cops, get the Secret Service. And Trump's in the background speaking. This is 2 minutes, Kevin.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
That's what the guy
2
said to the
long
BBC.
minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's that type of error, and you're not going to see it on the legacy media. You're not seeing it anywhere that they can keep that off. And I've really kind of been on social media more than I normally am, looking for the truth, and where I'm finding it is on X, and there is also on Truth Social, but predominantly on X. And it just shows that, and there were more. Then there is the witness that has the red beard, that guy, and then there's an older gentleman, and they both give their eyewitness accounts. The older gentleman said, "Oh yeah, I watched him climb up the ladder onto one roof, then get across to another roof. And yeah, I saw his rifle and what, and I was telling the cops." And the cops are going, "Well, where is he? Where is he?" And they couldn't see him from their vantage point, and they're not leaving their vantage points from what I'm seeing. This was gross negligence.
Well,
And
I'd like to say gross negligence, but I need to know how much of it was intentional and how much of it was just incompetent, like foolhardy incompetence. And it's pushing the limits to say that a Secret Service run event like this, that it could be that shoddy. It really is, because um, there is a report that says that this is just the latest in a series of uh, incidences of incompetence, including stuff that it's not specific to either party. They drove Kamala Harris past a suspected bomb
right,
site, and I'm
right.
just like, now, okay, hey, wait a second. Now, maybe that wasn't so accidental. They do need to figure out how to recover right now, and if from their political predicament. And I suppose it's possible that well, anything's possible. Let's just put it that way. But uh,
Anything is possible, and we have to be prepared for anything. I cannot say that this surprised me.
yeah,
Frankly, I've been expecting it and dreading that. And I just thank God that Donald John Trump is alive. And I'm sorry for those that got killed and injured, but it's in the times that we are, anything could happen anywhere.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
I
and sorry, go
To
ahead.
go a little with more of what you're saying, I frankly, I wonder, I pray that this was not intentional, but I
That it
have my
wasn't
doubts.
intentional. Yeah,
I have my doubts.
incompetence. Sometimes incompetence intentional, and then the circumstances develop where it becomes tragic. And I just think that every once in a while, um, people know better and they still do the wrong thing. And that's when I lose, they lose the veil of, oops, we just didn't think of that one. Right.
Yeah. No,
Um,
they've been moving him around, and he does so many rallies and he changes his mind because he is not a man that's just going to get told everything you're going to do.
no.
He's a man of his own mind. And I will say that when my mother and I were in Las Vegas with him recently, my mom had stated to a Secret Service woman that was there, or no, it was a man, I'm sorry, a Secret Service man said, "Thank you so much for keeping Trump safe." He
Yeah.
says, "You're welcome, ma'am. It's getting more difficult all the time." And I read a report, don't know if it's true, that only one of his permanent, as a former president, he has a permanent Secret Service detail.
Yeah.
And only one of his permanent Secret Service detail was with him that day. And the others were all temps. And then they brought in, from what I've read, they brought in local police, but they did not bring in their SWAT teams or that. And yet they had all of these. When you watch the video, here comes these guys all in fatigues. Looks like the National Guard, right? All in fatigues coming out. How come some of them weren't up on the roofs?
Well, they're supposed to be, and they said there were what they call counter sniper teams that are supposed to be snipers that
Right.
are looking for, the moment they sight someone, they just shoot them. And I don't know if there's a protocol that says they can't do that until the person gets a warning, but that's stupid. If that's the protocol, then they should shoot whoever came up with that protocol, because that is like super dumb. That's the opposite of, like, stick them up. And then the guy just shoots you and you're like, I guess I shouldn't have said stick them up. It's they have a lot of splaining to do, but I'm also looking at many of the things cited here already. The Secret Service director says she will not step down, and of course there's the related story. I mean, so I'm like, you aren't going to have to step down. You're going to find yourself in front of Congress. First, we're going to rake you over the coals, and then you're going to wish you stepped down. But then they got Mayorkas, that wax museum figure that's in charge of Department of Homeland Security, that said, I love that he runs in states the obvious. Mayorkas says Trump assassination attempt was a security, quote, failure, unquote. I'm glad that this guy is so clever that he figures out days after something happened that it was a failure. This guy is in charge of making sure that we don't have terror attacks everywhere in
They
the country.
should both be fired
immediately.
They should both be fired immediately.
I think that's too good for them, actually. That I personally think that if they find that this guy knew that terrorists intentionally got into the country, and then those terrorists kill somebody, I think it's treason, because he's knowingly guilty of allowing something to happen. I think treason has the right penalty for that guy. And that's just my personal feeling about it. And I have not changed that. I've felt like that all along. This isn't a guy who did his level best at his job. He knew that there were 400.
100%. I agree with you with that. It's treasonous what is happening on our border. Now, I also read on social media today, I do not know if it's true, that it is supposed to be from one of the snipers. And he said that he had the shooter in his sights and was told not to shoot.
Wow, whoever gave that order.
And if that's the truth, and now apparently he's been fired. That sniper's been fired. Why is it because he was a whistleblower to the fact where they should be shoot on sight when you are seeing a threat to the former president of the United States, and he's first and foremost the former president of the United States, and second, he's the presidential candidate and now the nominee for the Republican Party. Yeah. And so it should be shoot on sight. When you see a gun, I mean, this was not a pop gun. This wasn't a water gun. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that is true, but that is what I've read. I have a seen a post that that's what this fellow wrote.
Well, the
And
countdown has
so here,
started.
Lori says, I heard he was told to stand down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if
I
that
don't know.
happened, then whoever's responsible for that may should face criminal charges because
100%.
that is criminal negligence in a job. You if you allow stuff like that to happen as a police officer, you know, you can be second guessed and you can face charges. It can be negligent homicide. You know, it can be. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen, and so yeah, this needs more than an explanation. It needs more than just accountability. It needs consequences.
It
But the
was
thing is,
like
we know we're not
Keystone
going to get
Cop.
any of that from Biden. And Biden, this is how bad it is. A guy who never admits he does anything stupid or wrong. Most of the time, he can't remember he did something wrong. Biden's actually, because there was a question here earlier from one of our super viewers, super fans about did he say something about his bullseye remark, saying
Oh,
that time to
yeah.
put Trump in a bullseye, and he said it to donors, and it turns out that Biden has said it was a mistake saying that. I'm glad he regrets it afterwards. Of course, that's great. He
You
lacks the
know,
competence to avoid doing it in the first place, apparently.
it's awful that now as soon as something happens, oh well, let's dial down the rhetoric. Let's dial down, the immediately out of the legacy media, let's dial down all the rhetoric and let's stop all of that. No, no, no. You all made that.
Yeah,
The
we're
left
just
made
days
it.
away. We're just days away from a full blaming the victim
Yeah.
situation. They're going to start blaming Trump, but they already kind of have.
They already have. They
Yeah,
already have.
and they're saying, well, all this heated rhetoric has produced this situation. Well, actually, you know who produces assassination situations? Assassins. And there's always going to be somebody who wants to do this. And if you have a country run by people who don't think you should even put criminals in jail to begin with, unless they are grandmas that went to look for a toilet in the Capitol building on January 6th, those lock them up. But if everybody else, the rapists and the murderers, in fact, let's let more in to the country and then release them because, well, we just, can't hold them apparently. And so they're losing all credibility, Biden is, and this is after his precipitous decline, which I don't even know if we've gotten a chance to talk about his complete. He's just falling apart. The only thing I can think of that Biden can say that about the assassination attempt is that it's actually taken the spotlight off of him for a few days as he lurks somewhere, trying to figure out, licking his wounds, trying to figure out how to keep his candidacy for the nomination going. But after I've got the convention on here in the background, and after the convention, a bump for the convention for Republicans is going to be catastrophic for Biden. He could find himself down by 10 points, like everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And there's states like New York, Virginia, where they're getting competitive. They're getting into the single digits, and if that happens, this is going to look more like 1980. Where we get rid of an incompetent fool who's unleashed multiple wars around the world and has a economic malaise that we've sunken into with high inflation followed by increasing interest rates. Boy, it's funny, a deja vu is just hitting me everywhere. And the only thing is that the media is far worse than they were then. Far worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I've got a little breaking news here. The wife, Helen Comparator, the wife of Corey, has declined a condolence call from Biden after her husband's death at a Trump rally. And this was posted just a couple hours ago. And she says, I quote, my husband was a devout Republican and he would not have wanted me to talk to him, end quote. And she says, no, thank you. And no, thank you. I don't need to speak with Biden. And wow, you know, just wow.
Yeah, I
There's
think that there's the respect for Biden is collapsing, and it's not just in
yeah,
the Republican Party; it's everywhere. If we were
no,
doing this show and none of these events had happened, we'd be talking about the total uh, uh, collapse that's occurring within the Democrat Party, especially the Republicans in the House of or the Democrats in the House of Representatives. They're starting to run pretty scared because Biden might take them all down, and it couldn't happen to a nicer party. But uh, there are a lot of people running for cover right now, and this Republican National Convention is going to be a bit of a break. Democrats are hoping to change the subject. But then you have Democrats like it's Congress. There's a congressman from Mississippi whose staffer said got this actually put this on Twitter on X. So Jacqueline Marsaw, field director for U.S. Representative Benny Thompson, Democrat from Mississippi, said, "I don't condone violence, but please get some shooting lessons so you don't miss next time." Oops, that wasn't me talking.
that
This is
person needs to be removed. Removed.
well, you know, let's see. Nobody ever gets fired over there,
Yeah.
and if
There
there's
are
no
people getting removed from positions. I don't know if you follow libs of TikTok, but she is highlighting people in different professions that are saying, oh, yeah, like a nurse. Here's a nurse saying, too bad the shooter missed.
yeah,
And now that nurse, I've already read earlier today, that nurse now doesn't work for that Presbyterian hospital. And I was just looking here, Stephen Miller from America First Legal has reposted that Greg Price says days after an attempted assassination, Biden is back to calling Trump a danger to the country.
yeah. No, that's just it. And if you keep
Yeah.
saying someone's a
Empty
danger
words,
to the
hollow
country,
words you get from them.
well, right, danger to a country, danger to democracy, they pretty
Yeah.
much justify almost any step that you can take. And calling Biden a horrible president is not the same as saying he's so dangerous that he has to be removed by force. But
Yeah.
this is what they're saying about Trump.
That
And
is.
and I do think that uh, well, the other thing that I don't know a lot of people picked up on is that there was actually a bill put forward. I think that Benny Thompson or whatever the guy,
It's
the
still on the table.
yeah, there's that congressman. I believe he was one of the ones that put forward a bill that proposed uh, uh, eliminating Secret Service protection for anybody that they considered to be a felon. So they were going to say, convicted felon. And of course, they're trying to use this whole
Yes.
business records phony baloney thing that was created. Uh, they were going to use that conviction to say that it should be taken away from President Trump or anyone else for that matter. And it's insane. That's where the Democrats are going with this before the assassination attempt. So you know what you're getting now. That's what
Yeah.
you're getting from the Democrat Party right now.
But we had some good news. First thing this morning, woke up to see that Judge Cannon in Florida had
Eileen Cannon, yeah.
dismissed the charges and also had determined that Jack Smith was not in his position lawfully. It
Yeah,
takes an act of Congress. I went, hooray! You
yeah.
know, that was justice. And I'll tell you, Jack Smith and anything that he's tied to needs to just be all dismissed. So
Well, and you
good
know what
on
this
that judge.
was? This is how bad it was and how obvious a decision it was, is that you can't appoint somebody special counsel for special prosecutor under the special prosecutor statute unless that person is already approved as a prosecutor by Congress.
Yeah.
And so the only people you can appoint to those positions are existing U.S. prosecutors.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't take an existing U.S. prosecutor. They just took a lawyer and said, let's put him in charge of this. So they violated a statute in appointing him. And everything that was done by him evaporates.
You know what else she cited was the Chevron deference. In there, she cited the Chevron because an agency can't just make up stuff. It has to go through Congress. And so I think this might be the very first thing that
The
is going to
Chevron.
be from the Chevron decision out of our U.S. Supreme Court. And so that was fabulous news. You know, that was to take him down, and he was supposed to be sentenced a couple of days ago, and then that got all moved, and it all started falling apart. So then we have the attempted assassination. It's kind of like the timing, you know, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's does not ring real well, and but we also have good news, more good news today. And I
Yeah.
always like to end the show on good news.
Yep.
And that is Trump's vice presidential pick.
Yeah. He's picked J.D. Vance, the U.S. Senator from the state of Ohio. And by the way, the roll call took place this morning, right? Of all the
Mm-hmm.
states. And I guess if you watched it earlier, you would have seen it like on C-SPAN or something like that, where they went state by state, and each state, as we know, this is an experience I know I've had a couple of times, where they ask each state to tell how many delegates there are for the candidate running um, for the nomination, and they did that, and then I think it was all but one person, unanimous consent of the entire convention, to approve J.D. Vance as President Trump's vice presidential running mate, which he announced, as you said, this morning.
Actually, there was 12, and it's one state, and I watched it. There was one state, they said, per our law, these many delegates go towards Trump and 12 go elsewhere. You know, so there were 12 delegates of a state that had to go somewhere else. And that's just their law of how it is. And I don't know, you know, what preceded that.
You
But
mean for President Trump?
yes, for
Yeah.
President Trump. Yes.
Yeah. I think
And
that they did a voice vote on the vice presidential
yes,
nomination, which
by
is a second vote.
acclamation.
Yes,
And
an affirmation
yeah.
or acclamation, and it was, and there was like one person that said no, and the entire rest of the convention said yes. And I don't know who that person
Oh,
is.
so I didn't hear that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know, get a
Everybody
life.
laughed at it. It's almost like,
Yeah.
yeah, be the only
There's
guy,
got to be
whatever.
one. Are you? I wouldn't want to be that one.
Yeah. So JD Vance, I didn't think he'd be the one. Actually, I kind of had my money on Tim Scott or possibly Marco Rubio, but there was a derby between him and there's Burgum and Glenn Youngkin. But he decided on JD Vance, who has a very interesting background. This is what it says here when President Trump posted on Truth Social that he was choosing Senator JD Vance, who served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, is a Yale Law School graduate and editor of the Yale Law Journal and president of Yale Law Veterans Association. He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy, which is a major bestseller and movie, and it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. He's a very successful business career in technology and finance. And now during the campaign, they say he will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers, farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. I think it's fair to say that they expect him to accelerate the process of bringing in working class, particularly in the Midwest, where the polls are close, to tip the scales in the states that were just mentioned. Ohio, obviously, is one he would impact, and I think Ohio is really a red state. But if you look at it, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then that outlier, Minnesota, and then of course, Pennsylvania is where the attempted assassination took place. And yes, I saw somebody ask earlier, is it a swing state? Yes, it's a swing state.
Yes. So, it's going to be interesting. Eric Trump went to school with him. And so they're friends, and that's what I read. And I heard a lot of talk about him. I don't know, I don't know, who he was going to pick. I did not think Marco Rubio at all. And I also didn't think Tim Scott. Byron Donalds, I did. And I also thought of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But I'm very happy that he didn't pick any strong Republican governors, because we need our strong Republican governors in their states and fighting for states' rights. And, so now, of course, after the election, then JD Vance will have to get replaced. And that, but and his
Well,
wife,
there's a
is very
Republican.
smart.
Well, there's a Republican governor in Ohio, so there would be an appointment to fill out the 2-year term until an election could take place 2 years later, unless Ohio's law is different than other states. But I believe that's largely the case across the country, and so we would not be losing a seat in the U.S. Senate either.
No, and that's the good news, is we won't. And and yes, a lot of people said, oh, JD Vance, he bashed Trump, and what, like Bobby just said, in 2020, he said something about Trump and then recanted. And I think we all can say things that we don't know until we get to know somebody. And I think what happened is he got to know Trump and went, wow, I have a lot more in common with this fellow. We'll see. But because I don't know anything about JD Vance. I was doing a little reading today about him and his wife. She also went to Yale, and she, I want to say, clerked for Justice Roberts. And she's a smart woman, and they have 3 kids, and that will be it's going to be interesting. Here they go, because they're going to now get Secret Service detail, and their lives are changing in so many ways, just being the vice presidential nominee.
Well, and I think that even RFK Jr. now is going to get Secret Service protection. It's what it took to get the wax dummy that's running the Department of Homeland Security to finally acknowledge. He said, well, given the events occurring in the world today, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that this guy is at least years behind in catching up with the events of the world, some of which he's unleashed on the country. I tell you, when we find out what that guy has said and done after he's gone, he needs to roast for it for sure.
Yes, but just because there's we all have to vote. We all have to vote. We all have to try to get people registered to vote, and encourage people that don't vote or that feel their vote doesn't count. That's truly our job from now until November.
Yep.
And is that we have to do that, because there, in some parts, I think Oregon has a voter apathy. Our primary was pretty dang low, and we have to vote our way out of this. And as Trump says, we need it too big to rig, and it still has to be that way. This is not a done deal, but Trump is going to get a huge boost out of this assassination attempt, and I can't wait to hear his speech of what he says. And so C-SPAN has been on at our house all day. And something, I am going to be a little critical. Do you mind? I saw our Oregon delegation, and you would think that they would have let Solomon Yu, our retiring national committeeman of 24 years serving Oregon, do the introduction, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It was sad, to see. I was very, very disappointed, and that Solomon didn't have that honor, because I know that he is helping Trump. I know that he is very involved with the campaign and Trump, and so it's a shame, the, I'm going to say, pettiness of the Oregon Republican Party not to let him have that.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody in Oregon is going to have to get on board. I don't know in the end if how close Oregon's going to be in the presidential race. I've heard that there's some polling that says it's starting to get close, like single digits. But we have 3 congressional races in this
Yes.
state. And if we don't deliver on those, it's a big fat zero for
Yes.
Republicans in this state, because we can actually change the trajectory of the nation by doing our jobs in congressional districts 4, 5, and 6. And
Yes.
so those same folks that you were talking about need to show that that this is a substantive thing that they're going to engage in, that
Yeah.
this is pedal to the metal, that all the pettiness that can exist within a party is put aside to focus on achieving results, because we have opponents. We don't
Yeah.
need new ones. We don't need more of them. We've got formidable ones who actually do tend to win the races in this state, but maybe not this year. If we roll up our sleeves and pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to delivering the results that we need in this state. And
Yeah.
you and I are, of course, both very much committed to that. And I think we're just going to actually call on everyone to step up and make this
Yeah.
happen. Because, if you want President Trump's policies, you better make sure that there's a Republican-controlled House of Representatives. And I think we got a great shot at taking over the Senate. That's not something that Oregon can affect, at least not yet. But
Unfortunately.
yeah, but if we elect some people to Congress, that's
Yeah.
where your farm team potentially of future candidates for U.S. Senate can come from too. But we got to do it. We got to do it this year.
I feel like this is the best year for this, Kevin. I really, really do. The tide of everything accumulatively, and the candidates that we have, because, if you don't have a good candidate, people don't get behind it. And so I really, really think that we could, I defend what we have and pick up more. And that would just be so, so good for Oregon. But it's going to take work. It isn't
Well,
going to happen by doing nothing. Oh, somebody ought to do something. Oh, no, you ought to do something. And so
yeah,
everybody should be doing something in Oregon. Everybody.
don't point fingers at anyone else. Point 2 back at yourself and
That's
just get to
right.
work. It
Yeah,
is it is fight, 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 and
it is.
it's run through the tape at the end too. Like you said, win by more, win so big they can't rig,
Yep.
and win by more than the margin of fraud. Just get it across the finish line. And we've got some Democrats that are actually losing faith in their party, especially after what's
Yes.
been going on with Biden. This is again why it might be the year. And then there's some Democrats that are just like Val Hoyle that
Yeah.
just can't stop being, they're stuck on stupid. And
Yes.
we've had problems with Republicans in the past where we've had bad years and people were
Mhm.
stupid. Democrats took advantage of it. Let's return the favor. Let's do it this year.
So, Kevin, I have a heartwarming story, a little
Yes.
story.
Okay.
And I think this is the state of the nation. On Friday morning at our office, we open at 10 o'clock in the morning. So about 10:20, here comes an 80-something-year-old woman who drives in and parks her car, comes in, and she says, "I'm a Democrat and I need to re-register to vote. I cannot take this anymore." Yes. I said, "Welcome to the other side." And here's the form. And I said, "I happen to be going to Pendleton today and I'll drop it off." So she says, "I've been voting conservative, but I cannot support that side any longer."
Yeah.
And that was before the assassination attempt.
Wow. Yep.
So I think that, and I did say this story on Friday with Solomon. And in fact, kudos to you for saying, "Hey, Sonny, how about getting Solomon on?" Because it was your idea, and I did it. We did it, and
So
that
glad
was
it worked.
that was really good. But so there are people that that are tired of seeing what they're seeing. Their eyes are getting opened, and we
Yep.
have to continue to be the light and show them um, the direction our country can go and needs to go with
Yep.
Trump.
No, that's exactly right. We are on the path, and that is a heartwarming story. And for every one person who's fed up and gets in a car and drives to go change their registration, there's many more that are just going to vote differently this time, maybe for the first time, maybe not for the last time. And I know that when we show them what it looks like when the country actually has real leadership that gets things done, holds people accountable, delivers results, the results people want, not the results people don't want that they never voted for, like sticking men and girls sports and beating them up on volleyball courts. No one voted for that. Okay. Um,
Yes.
all that stuff that they've been giving us, we get rid of that and we get back to delivering things like a low inflation, high growth economy, a safe, peaceful world where we prevent wars, not stumble into them, and frankly, where the law and order matters again, where we have people that actually hold criminals accountable and make our streets safer and stop fueling the problems by having an open southern border that the current president and his people refuse to secure. I know it's going to be a tough road to the end of this election, but we have to be tougher than the road ahead of us, and I know we are. That's what Americans are made of.
Yep. Absolutely. That's
Well,
a good
thanks so
note
much
to
for
end on.
joining me here. This is great. I really appreciate. We seem to be able to improvise these shows with no prep, and tonight was a perfect example of that. But the news really did give us everything, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I'm glad that I was available. Thank you for the call. And I appreciate you, Kevin, very much. And I appreciate our audience.
You
Share
too,
the
Sonny.
message.
Thanks everyone for watching, and please share the show with everyone you can. And we will see you on the next episode of The Captive Audience. Have a